E te iwi tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora everybody, Che Wilson here from Te Pai Pai Waho, connecting to you tonight through a number of platforms. And as we get ready to get into our kaupapa tonight, which is on Wai Māori or water, I'm going to open us up. Mai a maranga wakarangona te rangi e tūnei, mai a maranga wakarangona te papea takotoa nei. Mai are are wakatupu anuku, mai are are wakatupu arangi, e au e nei ki te pai pai waho e tū nei. Turuturu au i te waka maua kia tīnā, tīnā, hui e tai ki e. Tai ki e kia tātou. So kia ora everybody, as I said earlier, I'm Che Wilson and I'm here tonight talking about Wai Māori and the importance of Wai Māori to us. And before I do that, just admiring the sunset out beyond Te Uku Power Station, looking pretty stunning tonight. So I want to mihi out to everybody and let's get into it. I want to talk about water because this last week I had 3 experiences with water. One was I gave evidence in an inquiry, and I'm not allowed to talk about that really. But I gave evidence, and just the concerns about the broken system, and 3 Waters only talks really about infrastructure and doesn't really solve these issues as much as is needed. But that was one thing that happened. Then I went home, got out of prison, or got out of lockdown, and went to home to Ohakune. And on my way to Ohakune, stopped in Taumaranui, got to say hello to our awa. And then on Saturday, went with mum and dad and Missy and my sister Dina and a nice little crew of us from the iwi into the Karioi forest to look at all of our diverted waters. And so I want to talk about those and water generally because I think if we can get to a different place, then that would take us to improved living standards and improved relationships with the environment. So where am I going with this? I suppose I'll start off with this first. Titi Tihu from the Whanganui River, from Taumaranui, Koro Titi, Jimmy Tihu, he would always say, ko tangaroa te atua o te wai. And so he would say that tangaroa is the god of the water. And he would be referring to both freshwater and saltwater. Though within the freshwater space, would also acknowledge parapinua mea and that interaction between hine tū maunga, hine pari tūpari maunga, and tāne that comes forth through parapinua mea, te parakarukaru and te hono, all of those different entities that link to freshwater. But an overarching view, he would refer to tangaroa. And I want to start there first because you've got to go back to the beginnings. And when we acknowledge tangaroa, when we acknowledge all of the atua, that means that wai, as our other taonga, as our other resources, they are taonga. And I think if we started the management of our natural resources by treating them as taonga rather than a commodity where you can make money from, I think the decision making would be different. And people may say that that's idealistic, but I think what's really important is the current system is broken, and we want to continue to use the same old shit to try and fix it when it hasn't happened so far. And a lot of that is based on measure. And when you use wrong measures, it can take you to the wrong places. And because the measure is how much money you can make from each litre per second and how many cubics you can then divert of water to other catchments for them to be then generated to create power and or be used without any compensation. And I'm not talking money, I'm talking about compensation of the impact of the environment to those places. Because one of the biggest lies that's out there is that around the world, people say that hydro energy is renewable energy, which is right if that hydro energy only comes from that same catchment. But when the hydro energy is developed as a result of diverting from other catchments and killing those rivers, you just need to go to the South Island and see the how rooted the things are down there, how dead riverbeds are, and if you've been raised that way, it just becomes normal after a while. In my case, it was really beautiful going up to the Wahianoa Aqueduct and seeing all of the different streams and the 22 intakes that divert at least 26 waterways under the desert road. The thing is that that's hidden in the Kariwa State Forest. And so I think the challenge is that we need to start treating water as a taonga. And when you treat water as a taonga, you wouldn't kill a river. You wouldn't leave a river 6 kilometres dry before nature naturally replenishes herself again. Instead, you would ensure that there is a restorative flow all year round if you are going to take some. And the point is some. Because the general argument, which is a load of rubbish, is that Māori just going to say no to everything. When, hey, look at me, I'm on the internet right now. I'm using power. I know that. And I like my power, especially as it's getting hotter. I want a fan. But the thing is that when you start from a place where everything is a taonga, then you maintain a balance. And you maintain a balance to ensure that you don't completely screw something. You may take for a time and then give back, and you will only take a portion if you do take, not all a portion. And when I think about the places I was privileged to go to in the weekend, the Wahianoa River above the diversion is an amazing waterway. And when you're up in the Wahianoa Valley itself, it's like you're in the American and Canadian Rockies. It's just stunning. And so I think when you go to those places, not only are you inspired and you feel the wairua of the rivers and of the maunga, but what it does is it takes you to a different level to reset. And I know after weeks of being in lockdown, having that chance to go to Taumarunui and just give my river a love. Because the river's my tupuna. So of course I'm going to give it a love. It's not just the Duncan and all of that. I'm going there to immerse myself so that I can love my awa and my awa can love me. And I share it like that because for some people that may be watching, you might struggle to understand how we see these natural, these geographical features and natural features on the earth as people or ancestors. And when you see them as people and ancestors, you then love them and you treat them as taonga rather than just as a resource that you can rip shit and bust through. So up in the Wahiano Aqueduct, it was just stunning. And the other thing up there is the water is so sweet. And the water is so fresh up there. And as my whanaunga Keith Wood was saying, it's so fresh, it's so pure that you don't even get things growing underneath. It's not until the awa starts to change as you go past where we were, and then you start to get growth in that under the rocks, so that the midges and all of those different insects start to grow there, and then that becomes kai for fish and crayfish, etc. But where we were, you get none of that, and it's just stunning and sweet and bloody freezing too. But one thing I really loved is I saw something in my mother and my father, and they're both over 80. And what I saw was went to the awa, did our thing. Mum did a poeri, did a karakia, did a mihi to the awa, as we always do. And then she's got her crutch, and she kicks her shoes off, and then she hops into the water, and it's bloody freezing. But I noticed when we walked back to the vehicle, you'd left your stick behind, and you had a spring in your step. And she'll be watching this probably tomorrow. But both her and Dad were the same. They both, after going to the different awa, especially when the awa in their natural state, they would leave the awa with a spring in their step. And so that's another reason why it's important to acknowledge a river as a taonga, because what it does is it not only helps you physically, like it helped them, but it also rejuvenates the spirit. And as it rejuvenates the spirit, what happens is you then get a new lease of life, and it takes us on a beautiful journey of having a relationship with your ancestor rather than this physical feature or geographical feature. And granted, you then get to see diversions and this massive amount of water being tunnelled under the desert road to then help create the Mowhango Dam, which is a catchment dam to feed the Rangipo station, which then goes into Tukanu to feed the Tukanu power station into Taupo. And then as the Waikato flows out, it's about 20% of the outflow of Waikato is diverted water. And I always get cheeky to my in-laws from Waikato that the water that they use to bless themselves is probably my water. E kōrero noiho, kōrero waka te te noiho. But I wanted to share a bit about water because not only did I have the 3 different experiences of water in the last week, but if we don't sort our shit out, and if we don't go from a different place going forward, and that's going to require changes in policy statements, changes in law, and changes in hierarchy. Because in National Policy Statement for Water, power companies have one of the highest hierarchies. And yet we do need power, but we need to change our behaviour, including me. Got to turn off all my switches now, so that we are using less power rather than the continued encouragement of do this, do that, buy this, buy that, and you can then do other things. So, yeah, I just wanted to share a bit about water because, as a mountain kid, we know our role. And our role is that we have to ensure that the rivers are flowing clean into our neighbours. And when they're diverted, what results is a paru river that gets sent downstream. And we have to carry that. And so I think as we look at ESG, environmental, social, and governance, and all of that stuff, we've got to put real measures against the E, the environmental, because at the moment, we don't want ESG to become the next carbon credit, because carbon credit is just a currency. It's all bullshit. Carbon is real, but the credits is just another trading scheme where you can make some money to continue to do bad things, and where people can make themselves feel good for continuing to pollute. And we don't need that in the water space because it's already hard as it is. So yeah, I don't usually go this way in my Kauhau sessions, but I thought, well, actually, I'm going to share a bit about the water because before I finish off, just like to go to a tribal proverb. And the tribal proverb is, e rere kau mai te awa nui, mai te ka ui maunga ki tangaroa, kouau te awa, ko te awa kouau. The river flows from the mountains to the sea. I am the river, and the river is me. And that's a really loose, basic translation of that whakatauki. But what I like to deep dive into that kōrero, basically because I am the river and the river is me. I translate as I am the universe and the universe is me. I am God and God is me. And what I mean by that is the river is our everything, the Whanganui River. And when you live in the Whanganui River, the river dictates your weather, the river dictates how you move, how you travel, and it dictates your growing and catching of kai. And so it's our universe. And when your universe is your God, then it's your God. And when you have those layers of understanding and relationship with natural and geographical features, that's why I said, and I posted about it too, that when I got to Taumaranui, I gave my river a love. And Auntie, I can see you on there in the deep south. And when I saw my mum jump out of the river with a spring in her step, and she's 80, 81, 82 next year, it reminded me of your mum. It reminded me of Nanny Minna and what the river did to give her life and to give her a few more years when she'd signed herself out of hospital and wasn't given much time to live. And well, her belief in her awa gave her another few more years. So katiake. I could go on and on and on about my rivers. Before I close, Matt Renata, happy birthday, brother. E mi ana kia koe. Oh, yes, and I can see te waitara nui, tēnā koe, sister. But one pātai. I've been asked to share or consider doing webinars. And I do all of this for free. And I've been asked to see whether I'd be open to doing webinars. And some of them I'd still do as free, but some of them I'd charge. And so if people think that's a good idea, let me know. Okay then, take care everybody. Hope you're all well. And make sure you go to your river and give your river a love. And if they're paru, then you've got to give them more love. And yet you might not want to jump in and swim in it, but you still need to go there and go and talk to the river to feed it some positive energy as you then go and help it plant, all of those different things, work with the system and fight the system to ensure that it's then cleaned up. Ka tiake, kia wakaere ake e nei, kōrero ki te tāhuhu nui, o rangi nui e tū nei, turuturu ohiti, o ka maua kia tīna, Tina, hui e, tā ki e. Kia ora tātou, give your river a love.